Apple recently announced an update to the new M4 MacBook Pro, and it came with some surprising updates that make it a much better value, especially at the base model, with Apple fixing one of their biggest complaints from the Apple Silicon generation. However, is this new M4 MacBook Pro too good to be true, and is it really a pro-level machine, or should you avoid this new base model and go for an upgraded M4 Pro model? Now listen, full disclosure, I'm not trying to trick you here. This is not an M4 MacBook Pro, just using this as a visual aid because the M4 MacBook Pros are not released until Friday, but these are available to pre-order right now. I know a large segment of my audience buys Macs right away, and I have received a lot of comments on my other videos asking me about my opinion on certain Mac configurations, so consider this my buying advice with all the facts that we have right now. And honestly, we know a lot already because we have leaked benchmark scores and just a lot of experience with how Apple Silicon machines already perform, and let's be honest, the form factor of the MacBook Pro did not change, so it's fair to make a few assumptions here and there. Also, quick note, just a big thank you to everyone that subscribed on the last video. I didn't think we'd have a chance of reaching 400,000 subscribers by the end of the year, but after seeing the latest numbers, you guys are really blowing me away with the amount of support we receive, so we still have 2 months left. It's still a lofty goal. It's no way secured at this point, but if you're watching this and you find this video helpful, by the end of it, consider subscribing to join the army of other viewers out there, because I can't have this guy have more subscribers than me. I mean, come on. Apple track, more like Apple, I can't stand your face or your voice and everything you stand for. Am I right, guys? Right, guys? Guys? All right, so one of the important things I want to talk about is how this time the base model MacBook Pro is closer than ever to being a pro-level machine. And I feel like in years past, Apple would usually nerf these base level models to kind of push you to the higher end configurations. But this year, that doesn't seem like it's true. I think the big story here is the specs. This year, Apple is finally giving us 16 gigabytes of memory on all of their base M4 Macs. And the M4 MacBook Pro, unlike some of Apple's other base configurations, comes with a respectable 512 gigabytes of storage. So this racks up to a total of $1,600, which is $400 cheaper than the M4 Pro model. So what are you giving up by picking this cheaper base model? Well, not that much, especially when you look at a lot of the upgrades that you might have expected to be exclusive to the pro level machines. I think the biggest of those upgrades, something that Apple could have easily skipped on the lower end M4 model, is the display upgrade. And they usually do skip display upgrades on their lower end model. But all these MacBook Pros now come with a brighter display that can get up to 1000 nits of full screen brightness for SDR content. That is much brighter than the old 600 nit specification, and it should make the MacBook Pro display much more viewable in brighter environments. Secondly, another thing that Apple usually likes to do is to save certain configuration options only for the higher end models. And we don't have to look too far to see Apple apply this in recent product announcements. Specifically, I am talking about the optional nano texture display upgrade to further reduce glares. This is not an option on the base model iMac, and it's not an option on the lower tier storage iPad Pro. So I was shocked to see that, yes, on the configuration page, even if you buy the base M4 MacBook Pro model, you can still opt to add this optional matte display to further reduce glare, and the upgrade cost is actually pretty respectable at just $150. Apple didn't even keep an upgrade like the center stage camera exclusive to the higher end version, so you're getting a lot of the same upgrades on all models. Apple isn't pulling some cost-cutting measure here on the $1,600 version, and that is surprising considering, heck, even last year on the M3, Apple saved the new space black color just for the M3 Pro and higher end configurations, but this time they're letting you get that color on the base M4 version. Apple even fixed the more limited port option on the M4 base model by adding a third Thunderbolt USB-C port on the right-hand side of the device, so now all versions of the MacBook Pro have the same number of ports. Apple even fixed one of the biggest complaints people had with the MacBook Pro not being able to support 2 external displays on the base model. On the M4, that is finally fixed. You can now have 2 external displays running and have the lid open. But there is one gotcha, one thing that could maybe make you consider the higher end MacBook Pro, and that is that the M4 Pro and M4 Max configurations come with Thunderbolt 5 ports, which support faster bandwidth speeds up to 120 gigabits per second. Now, yes, the M4 model does come with the same ports, and they are Thunderbolt 4 ports, which are still fast, but support a max speed of 40 gigabits per second. And yeah, there's not too many Thunderbolt 5 accessories at the moment, but there are a few. For example, I found this Thunderbolt 5 SSD from OWC that basically gets double the SSD speeds as their Thunderbolt 4 model, and it's almost as fast as the internal drives on the highest end Apple storage options. Now listen, right now buying either of these models today probably won't make much of a difference. Think of buying the higher end M4 Pro model as something that will show the benefits later as we get more Thunderbolt 5 accessories. And it might be a future-proof port if you are planning on buying any exclusive Apple displays in the future, because theoretically a Thunderbolt 5 port should enable Apple to make a display that can drive higher than 5K resolutions at faster refresh rates. I think that could mean finally an update to at least Apple's Pro Display XDR to support 120Hz ProMotion. So if you plan on saving, let's say, for the sake of argument, $5,000 for a display in the future, maybe you should skip out on saving some money on the $1,600 laptop and spend $400 more on the $2,000 laptop. But if you're already calculating that in your head, I think you have more money than most people. You're probably rich, so, Oh, just do it, you're rich! What? Now, yeah, even though Apple fixed a lot with this base version, there is still that one big difference. It is that the base model comes with just a regular M4 chip. That's the same chip that's in the low-cost Mac Mini, the iMac, and even the iPad Pro. So you might think, okay, this MacBook Pro, it really isn't up to snuff to be a Pro machine because that chip just isn't powerful enough. And that is a fair assumption to make, but you would be wrong. The M4 chip is actually more powerful than last year's base M3 Pro chip in CPU performance in single core and higher in multi-core CPU performance. Keep in mind that the M3 MacBook Pro is only 1 year old, and already we have a base model M4 that is outscoring it at $400 less. It even matches the multi-core performance of the 12-core M3 Pro chip, which was an optional $200 upgrade on the M3 Pro model. So right off the bat, you are getting, for lack of a better term, a pro-level CPU on this machine, and in most cases, because so many apps rely on single-core performance, this M4 MacBook Pro will be faster for most everyday tasks than the M3 Pro version, and that is an insane value. The only real area of weakness compared to the M3 Pro is with the GPU. It's still just a 10-core GPU, and it's about 13% weaker than the 14-core M3 Pro, and about 30% weaker than the full-spec 18-core M3 Pro. Now, I'm showing you how good this M4 compares to last year's M3 Pro to show you just how good of a value it is, because for a lot of users, the M3 Pro was more than enough machine, and now you can basically get that same level of performance, or better, on a machine that is $400 less this year. But now, after you digested that, I know what your next question is. Greg, should I step up for that M4 Pro? I mean, it's $400 more. How much am I getting with that machine? Well, that depends, because while I think the base M4 MacBook Pro is a great model, the M4 Pro does extend the value over last year's model too. That's mainly because this model now comes with 24 gigabytes of memory, even on the base model, upping it from last year's default of 18 gigabytes of memory. Furthermore, you also get an M4 Pro chip, and listen, we already have leaked benchmarks on this chip, and so far it looks insane. In multi-core CPU performance, you would see a 36% bump over the base M4 chip. For reference on how powerful that is, the current leaked benchmark of this M4 Pro chip is faster than last year's M3 Max chip and faster than the M2 Ultra chip in the Mac Pro. In fact, if the M4 Max chip didn't exist, which we're not talking about in this video, the M4 Pro chip would be the most powerful CPU on the market today for a Mac. And in GPU performance, you could see up to a 70% improvement over the base M4 chip. Now, I do have to note here that these leaked Geekbench scores are from the M4 Pro chip with the full 14-core CPU and 20-core GPU, which is an additional $200 upgrade, which puts it $600 away from this base model. There currently are no leaks in performance on the base M4 Pro chip because Apple usually doesn't send out review units of their lower-end models to reviewers, but that is the model I ordered, so if you want to see how good that base M4 Pro chip performs, make sure you're subscribed. Still, I did some back-of-the-napkin math dividing the multi-core CPU performance, and for this 12-core M4 Pro, I expect that it will score around 15% worse than the full 14-core version. So still very powerful, and it will probably be around a 21% improvement in multi-core over the base M4 model, which is what you should probably be comparing this to, right? Then there's also the configuration options you have for the M4 MacBook Pro. You can actually get some respectable memory upgrades on this model now. You can max this all the way up to 32 gigabytes of memory for $400 more. That is the most memory you could ever get on a base model M4 machine. However, this is where I think the base model goes from being a good value to a bad value, because this now puts it at the same $2,000 starting price point as the M4 Pro version. And don't forget, the M4 Pro version not only comes with a more powerful CPU, a more powerful GPU, those Thunderbolt 5 ports, but that base model gets 24 gigabytes of memory. So you're really only losing out on 8 gigabytes of RAM for the same price point for a more powerful laptop. Sure, you can argue that the M4 chip uses less power, so you get 24 hours of battery life, but the M4 Pro still gets 22 hours of battery life, so I would still pick that upgraded version over the base M4 version. And yes, you can increase the storage, which may be a better upgrade considering you can still get a 1TB M4 MacBook Pro for $200 less than the base M4 Pro. But remember, you can only max out the M4 version at 2TB, while the M4 Pro can go all the way up to 8TB. So if you need a higher end spec, you want to look at the M4 Pro. Still, I don't want to get away from the point of this video. We are kind of talking about the base M4 MacBook Pro and the value it represents. And it does represent what I think is the best value in Apple's laptop lineup when it comes to features, performance, battery life, connectivity, and price. This base model with 16 gigabytes of memory is now finally worthy of that Pro name, and this is enough computer for most users. And quite frankly, the vast majority of people out there probably won't see a return on investment by going for the higher end M4 Pro version. So yeah, while there used to be a lot of gotchas with the base model MacBook Pro, there's really no gotchas this year. And this is a great laptop. Do not be fooled by that base M4 chip. It is more powerful than you think, and this is definitely probably going to be my top recommendation for most users. This is such a good value this year. Well, if you want to buy this MacBook Pro, one thing you could do is use my affiliate link in the description below if you want to support the channel. And while you're there, if you like the video, make sure you give me a like. If you want to see more, make sure you're subscribed. Maybe we'll get to 400,000 by the end of this year, and I will be eternally grateful. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next one.